Today I want to talk about something that affects all of us to some degree at some point during our lives, and something that we all know intimately. We don't always know where it comes from, nor do we know necessarily why it's even there, but we know how it feels. It's that contracted and tight feeling in our chest. It's that racing mind. It's that restlessness, like, you want to jump right out of your skin. It's that tightness in our neck and in our shoulders. Talking about anxiety. I want to preface this talk with the disclaimer that I'm not a doctor, nor am I a mental health professional. I'm just a person, just like you, who's been through this, and I'm here to encourage you and to contribute to the conversation in a positive way. So let's talk about the possible roots of our anxiety and how we resist it most of the time. We often notice that it arises out of a disconnect between now and some other place that's in our thoughts. A thought about where we think we should be, how we should be, what we should be doing that is not the reality here in the present. And it's because of this uncomfortable nature that we resist it. We don't like it because it makes us feel like we're completely out of control. No matter how much we try to control it by thinking more about it, the resistance only increases. And this torturous cycle just continues as long as we keep trying to push it away. And this is why anxiety can't be solved by thinking about it, thinking about how much we don't want to feel it. We are fighting anxious thoughts with more anxious thoughts, fighting thinking with more thinking. So all of these feelings just become more amplified. So considering that our anxiety is coming from our thoughts and our perceptions, we can then start to pay attention to those thoughts and what they are actually saying. How are they adding to anxiety? How are they not helping? But it's very important that you understand that you not blame yourself for what the thoughts are saying. That is not our fault. This is something that we've learned unconsciously. It happens outside of our awareness, out of our control. And when we become aware of our thoughts, we can then begin to work with them differently than we ever have before, and start to see through some of the pervasive storylines that keep giving us our feelings of anxiety. Epictetus was an ancient Stoic philosopher, and he said, "Men are not disturbed by things, but by the views which they take of them." In other words, it's not the thing that happened or isn't happening, but rather our thoughts about it that are creating our anxiety. Our endeavors to improve our lives must include becoming more self-aware of this. This is how we're going to break that cycle that has kept us trapped and feeling helpless for so long. And plain and simple, resistance does not work. It only serves as fuel for the very thing that we're trying to extinguish. Working with our conditioned thought patterns requires a new approach, one that we've never tried before, an approach that is going to build trust in ourselves to heal from our afflicting thoughts. Self-inquiry is a way to learn how our mind works and how it has contributed to our anxiety. When we see that all of this is due to our unconscious conditioning, we will be able to accept what it does more easily and begin to work with these kind of thoughts. A while back, I made a video about the two modes of mind, as described by Ramana Maharshi, who is an ancient Indian sage. He taught about the externalized mind and the internalized mind. So I want to revisit this for just a moment. The externalized mind is our attention or consciousness, whatever term you prefer to use, projected outward. Outward, in this case, in those really heady thoughts. You feel like you are actually in your head. You feel that pressure and you feel that tension in your eyes. It's like conscious awareness is completely lost in thinking, often thinking that, let's be honest here, that really makes no rational sense. It's often full of judgment and embarrassment and shame and anger and fear. The thoughts and feelings become kind of like a feedback loop that becomes really too much for us to bear. We believe that it is us that is doing the talking, that we are the one who actually lives in the head. That is the feeling of separation and disconnectedness that so many of us feel. Our awareness feels like it has actually left our body and is consumed by the mental cacophony of our racing thoughts. That, my friends, is anxiety, and we can become so identified as this we can't even see our way out. I spent a lot of my childhood and adulthood in this sort of disconnected state. I was completely in my head, dissociated, and sort of numb to the outside world, and definitely disconnected from my body. I was also at times overly self-conscious and quite often hyper vigilant. And then I started drinking a lot to deal with it. And my whole perception of my life was distorted because of my identification with my thinking, with my thoughts. The worst way to cope with our anxiety is to turn to alcohol or drugs. They might seem like they're a quick fix, but they only serve to lead to more anxiety. And we're not addressing the root nature of our anxiety when we do this, and only make our problems grow. And we actually prolong the work of our recovery. Our best bet is to detox those chemicals out of our brains, out of our bodies, but that takes time. So why delay? Why delay taking that first step towards a sober and mentally healthy life? So now that we got that out of the way, what is the way forward? Through practice, we can bring our awareness back into our bodies, which is the immediate present. This is the internalized mind. Here we are now connected. It does take practice if we're not used to this, and we may notice that even if we have come back into our bodies, there can still be this little thread of attention out there attached in the thoughts. But as we notice that, then we can start to work with that. When we sense our body, our breathing, we can feel that we are the sensing, we are the breathing when we go deep enough. When all that remains is sensing, all that remains is breathing, all that remains is just being. And in this practice, you might notice that there are still thoughts back here. They're running in the background. But it's different now because we aren't caught by them. They aren't dominating what we are experiencing right here. This is how we learn to see through our thinking mind. Now, all this is not to say that thoughts are bad. That's just not the point. We are just noticing the conditioned trains of thought that were unconsciously habituated in us throughout our lives before we even realized what was happening. It's completely natural. When we learn to live from within our bodies and not our heads, we feel more whole and more able to work with all those trapped emotions as they arise in our more relaxed and clear state. When we live more of our awareness inside of our bodies, our minds don't stop working, but they don't ruminate and they don't dissociate like before. When we use our minds from the heart space instead of our heads, there's more coherence within us. Now, this is sometimes referred to as brain and heart coherence, and we can learn to calm our sympathetic nervous system that is responsible, for that fight or flight response that we sometimes get, as well as calming our parasympathetic nervous system. So there is actual science to support this. It's not just this woo-woo spiritual stuff. All of this takes practice, but it's worthwhile if you're plagued by anxiety. And over time, we will catch when we've been caught. We might notice that, that cramp in our shoulder, that tension that's in our eyes, in the forehead, or that suffocating feeling that we have in our chest. That's one way that we can see we're caught up in the externalized mind. We can learn the tools to drop back into our bodies and become more grounded and more centered and more balanced. But this is one of the purposes of a meditation practice, to learn how to be in our bodies instead of in our heads. In the beginning, this kind of practice is not easy, but every time we do it, we learn more about the nature of thinking and our resistance. Many people give up on this practice because of this. Trust me, I get it. You don't even have to call it meditation if you don't want to. It's more about just getting quiet and noticing what's happening within you and deciding not to fight yourself any longer. Our thinking patterns are well-worn paths. They're neural networks associated with overthinking, overanalysis, scenarios, and all the emotions that come with them. Transcending these will not happen overnight, but you will want more once you have a taste of the peace that is available. So I encourage you to have patience with the process and just don't give up on it. Lao Tzu said that nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. We have to allow things to take the time that they take. Remember this when you feel frustrated or stuck. Give yourself grace, my friends. Give yourself grace. So just to recap, the most effective way to break free from the cycle of anxious overthinking is to reconnect with our bodies. Simple practices like mindful breathing or maybe even a walk can anchor us back in the present moment. By losing all that extra noise, you can let your mind start to operate more clearly and more easily. There are many resources out there to help with this sort of thing, but I suggest that you look into something like maybe Yoga Nidra, which is not what you think. It's not like traditional yoga, but it brings your attention to the different parts of your body. It helps you get out of your head. You could also spend some time writing, journaling, whatever you want to call it, and writing down what you are noticing about your thoughts and how they are actually making you feel. Investigate them. See what clarity arises from that. Of course, I'm always going to recommend nature, because that's my favorite thing, because it can totally soothe us and ground us when we feel like we are living in our heads. And don't dismiss seeking support if you think that that's something that can help. You know, we're all doing this human thing together. We're in this together, my friends. And whether it's support from a professional, a group, or a friend, it can all help. So part of giving ourselves grace is to remember that feeling overcome by anxiety is not our fault. It's not. It's a normal part of being human, and we should never feel any shame about it or blame it on anything or anyone. What matters is that we are confronting it now in a healthy manner. Nobody is responsible for us but us. Becoming whole is also part of being human, and it demonstrates our taking responsibility for ourselves. So why not take those steps forward, those first steps forward toward wholeness and healing now? I sincerely hope this talk resonated with somebody out there. I hope my words landed where they needed to land. Thank you so much for being here today with me. I will see you all next time.